Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at a knot of fools. But if fools or knaves or both I care not, here they are, come laugh and spare not, by Thomas Brewer. It is a strange text. I think that's leading the witnesses too much to say. We're not quite sure what this text is for, or what it is trying to do, or who the audience is, or is it a proper what kind of performance text is this? Is it a performance text? It probably is, but there are questions, which is why we're actually going to be reading to the reader introduction. We don't normally do the literary stuff. We usually only do prologues and things, but we're going to read it this time because we're really not sure what this text is doing. So it's also quite short. So it was originated around 1623, so we're in the 1620s, people. Latter stage of King James, and right on top of the controversy of the Spanish match, and there's a lot of questions to ask about Thomas Brewer about this text, but sadly he is dead. So, reading the play, reading various fools and Democritus, we have Alan, we have Lynn, and we have Rachel joining us. And Rachel is also reading Pride at the end, but we're pretty much alternating a series of fools. But I'm going to ask Alan to start us off with our introduction to the reader, please.
Kind reader, because I'd find thee so, I'd so in style thee. I have here, I will not call a puppet show, though those and these come something near, compared with judgment, such a sight as for thy cost returns delight. You know the title, then laugh on, yet so this mirth should be received, as 'twas by him that long agone, Democritus, as folly laughed, and yet was grieved. For when he laughed at lust or pride, 'twas not to cherish, but deride. So laugh and spare not, for the sport will last till time's extremest date, in city, country, and at court, which way soe'er you turn your head. The best I'd please, which if I can, I care not. So as my title says, come laugh and spare not.
Thomas Brewer there giving us not necessarily any clues. It's not a puppet show, apparently. Okay, so it's not a puppet show. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe there's a clue there. Nice thing. It's very self-referential. Asking the reader to be kind. Reminding them of the title that you're supposed to laugh and spare not. Because. Anybody got any thoughts on that thing? There's not a lot really to say, I suspect.
No,
but I just... Anyone? Lynn.
You kind of have to admire his optimism. For the sport will last till time's extremest date. Yeah, no. I mean, as you have observed, Rob, time is unkind to comedy. Jokes that are hilarious in cultural context, are obscure, and then when you have to explain a joke, you kill it. So, sorry, Tom, that didn't turn out to be true.
Well, we don't know yet. We may be rolling in the aisles. But apparently this is supposed to be funny. So that is our primary driver here. And for the city, the country, or the court as well. So it's for all occasions. I'm sure it'll be brilliant. Okay, so bit of context. We have some things that are a bit like stage directions, and some things that are more sort of side glosses that come up later on. But we have a scene with 12 fools coming up, and we have what is as close to a stage direction as we get. The crew meet and salute. For their characters, take them as you find them in their own fantastical prating, which is a helpful description. We're alternating the fools between us, so we're going to go through the first 3 fools very quickly, and then the 4th and 5th fool will chat with themselves for a bit, and then we'll roll into the 6th, 7th, etc. So for the reader, these 3 people are 12, as we, broadly speaking, chronological. So, first, second, third, etc. Take it away.
Save you,
God save you.
Save you.
sirs, in one, among you all 1,000, so we have done our salutations quickly, face to face. So many friends brought in a minute's space, so unexpectedly. Now, by my blood, a thing that has no tainture from the mud, a vulgar baseness, but as pure and clear as any, coated ever since the year of blushless innocence, that thus we meet, presents a joy as welcome and as sweet as can by man be tasted.
Stay, sir, stay. Can you backward such an endless way? To fetch thee grace, the lustre, the bright fire of honor to your title, and not tire? 'Twere fit you pause a little, make a stand. So much good blood, and yet so little land. I hope we know you.
Then thou knowest my name enrolled with great ones.
Why, the greater shame, as you abused. And you remember well, I bought the land that you were forced to sell, to buy your chase of pleasure. When such apes as you are court her in 1,000 shapes, here's the just issue. Give your betters way.
The dunghill scarab with the eagle play, cause thou hast wealth that has been got with sweat, first by mechanic labor, since deceit. Upon necessities that fruitful use, that still begetting, shall I brook the abuse of thy comparisons?
Hold, I pray. Clubs, and prentices to part the fray. If you be men, put up. We have all heard the difference between you, and a due regard would thus conclude. Thus heal this dangerous sore. He's rich, a beggar, and thou, gentle poor. How's then your swords? I see your hearts and mine have aims quite contrary. Give me the vine, the noble juice of that. If you will jar about the goodness of your blood, the war must not be thus maintained. Your nobler passes must be with pots, deep bowls, with cups and glasses. Brimful will sparkle in your face, that it's refines the blood and makes the base. I thought it as the noble. This I'll prove. This I have tried, and this pure blood I love.
Why, God of mercy, lad, but on the lip of beauty lies the nectar that I sip. Wherefore to taste does not decrease the sweet, but still it grows. The more oft we meet, the more delight dwells in it. No such charm as in the circle of a woman's arm. And to conclude and sum up all in one, the joys in action when all else are done.
Peace, silly man. They that delight in this are poor effeminate weaklings. Let me kiss the cheek of honor, have a name that shall bear the double edge of favor and of fear, as I please to see it. Like the shine that we should all see by, have the bright, divine, and golden ray of greatness. Here's the theme by day I plod on, and that makes me dream when night's black mantle hides us. Here's the end, shows fire within us, striving to ascend.
Sir, there be serpents in the way you tread, and though ambition have a lofty head, it comes sure home sometimes. I never care to spread my coloured plumes. Let me have fair old gold to look on, to line my bags, though my meat's coarse, and my best clothing rags.
But that thou bearest white hairs upon thy head that plead for pity, I should kick thee dead, stark dead before me, like a cullion go, and have a golden tagus hourly flow into thy strong barred coffers. Such are my more generous thoughts, that to the world's squint eye I'll show an outside that for cost and fashion, cut a snip into the last translation, shall make all eyes attend it. It shall command such hinds as thou art with their cap in hand to servile duties. Nay, the gallant's curse, though to this suit I have an empty purse, I'll suit my faith in state. Though much in debt, so much this son must in a prison set. I'll scorn obsequious crouching. Men shall find how ere in state I'll have a stately mind.
No more. These are no friendly parts. Beside, to stand, to run through all these hearts, would ask too long a time.
Nor were it fit. Take every man the privilege of wit, and way that he best fancies. We are free to thrall ourselves, were a captivity beyond the galley's plague. But we are spied by one that fits to laugh, cheer, and deride. Those actions cross his liking. Come, let's walk. Next time we meet, we'll find more time to talk. Come, laugh and spare not.
And exit the 12 fools as the entrance of Democritus occurs. Okay, right. Very much got a handle on what this text is doing now. That's helpful. I'm going to contend this isn't going to be a laugh a minute riot as the To the Reader suggested, but it has a relatively straightforward thesis. We have seen it before. A couple of people come on, and one's an old-fashioned aristocrat but who has no money, and one's some nouveau riche person who's lent him money, and the other fools put forward what they think is more important in life in terms of social standing and things. So drink, beauty, honour, gold and clothes are thrown into the mix there as well. And we've had this in debate plays much earlier than this in a much more expansive form. I mean, there's something about the brevity of this I quite like. It sort of gets in, it does its little demonstration, it gets out again. This feels actually much more familiar than I was expecting, which is nice. Alan?
Yeah, I'm almost wondering whether what we've got is the 7 deadly sins plus a few.
Yeah.
Because you've got lust, you've got avarice, you've got sloth, you've got gluttony, and Snow White's yet to turn up.
It's interesting because we've also got a lot more indications of it physical action as well. That the fourth fool, who's the aristocrat, the old money, shall we say, and the fifth fool, who's the new money, are obviously come to blows. They're having a fight, and the sixth fool has to break them up because he's got the call of clubs and parentheses to part the fray. And so there's a lot more physical action as well. And obviously, whoever's playing the first, second, and third fool are people who aren't very good with words. Because we've got these three characters, and all they say is, save you, God save you, save you. And that's it. They say nothing more. They're just on stage for reasons. Or it's just labelled wrong. And there aren't actually 12 fools. There's only really 9. And even the last 2 could be dispensed with. So we could get it down to 7 quite straightforwardly. Lynn.
Yeah, on a different topic, I was really struggling with the enjambment in the verse. And maybe that's a comic thing to have the end of the sentence in the middle of the verse line and then the end of the verse line not really necessarily where a natural pause would be in the phrasing. So at first I was trying to read it so that the rhyme was audible, and like this last speech I did, it's just like I'm ignoring that. I'm going to try to make the sentences make sense, but then you don't really hear the rhyme. So it's really tricky. It might actually be a really useful exercise for acting students who are trying to learn how to deliver rhymed verse dialogue, so you can get that balance between the rhyme and the syntax, because I found it quite tricky.
Yeah, and I do wonder if it's the kind of game that playwrights are more into in the 1620s as well. We haven't got there en masse, but we've certainly encountered a few playwrights that are doing this kind of job around about now. So I'm wondering if it's more, and it may be that it's more apparent here because the playwright isn't perhaps as good as some of those other playwrights, or that we just need to spend a bit of time rehearsing it and playing around with it, and that there's something stylistic that comes out of this with a little more play, because it is a bit tricky to do on a cold read. Lynn again.
Yeah, I don't think this is what's happening here, but there are a couple of plays earlier in the period where I can't remember whether it's Ralph Royster Doyster or Gammer-Gurton's Needle, where there's a letter, and if you end stop the lines, it means the exact opposite of what was intended, because the syntax ends in the middle of the verse line, and depending on where you put the pauses, you completely reverse the meaning of the letter. Alan was nodding; he knows what I'm talking. You remember, but
I definitely remember the moment. It's not Gammer-Gurton; it might be Ralph Royster or a play from around about then.
And there's something similar in a play that we're not allowed to talk about. So I wonder if this is this a thing? Like, sort of wrong-footing the audience and wrong-footing the actor by putting by making the syntax and the verse lines kind of at odds with each other.
Yeah, I don't know if it is striving for that specific effect. I didn't notice that there was an obvious shift in meaning or it was just the tidiness of how you say it is more the issue. But maybe. Any other thoughts before we move on from this opening gambit? It's an interesting little thing. It hasn't offended me. It goes into a little box of things that are similar to this, which are mostly longer. So that's so it's sort of winning on certain levels as a little thing to do. Now the next part, they've announced that someone comes on stage. They shuffle off all 12 of them. But they have announced that we are spied by one that fits to laugh, jeer, and deride, and we're just going to alternate. It's one character, but we're all going to alternate the reading of it, and just to make life bearable, because otherwise it's one person talking for a very long time. That would just be mean. So it's Democritus, and every speech seems to have a different theme, which is noted. I don't think this is performance text, so I will read the sort of summary gloss to each of these when we hit them in between laughter. So at the end of everybody's laughter, you swap over to the next person. We'll start with Lynn, then we'll go to Rachel, then we'll go to Alan. So that'll be the ordering system as we go, and we'll stop occasionally when we've done it, gone round at least once, probably, maybe twice. Yeah, we'll probably go through twice. So there's some sort of transition from the exiting fools to Democritus, and we will start off with Lynn. Democritus, number 1. You get 3 ha-ha-has, but you can vamp as many ha-ha-has as you wish.
It's funny. Ha-ha-ha! Oh, give me leave to laugh. A world of things in this large theatre, the world. Time brings fit subject for it. And though laughter be but the fool's index, and so thought of me, I greatly care not. For the antique show, I see, so noted, would make laughter flow as fast from any. Ha-ha, nor believe, for in the instant that I laugh, I grieve, 'tis more idiotism, a motley mark, such as it has pleased the Almighty to leave dark, only a man outside. No, I hit with my loud laughter fools that have more wit than they know what to do with, such whose eyes see but themselves, all fools, but they only wise.
And the note is, better to hang than to feed.
And but observe this fellow. By his coat you'd hardly think he could command a groat. Yet is the lord of mountains, has a mind posset, in use in nothing, but the shine of the rich earth he treasures. Night and noon 'tis golden sun, and his bright silver moon. In adoration he doth thus proceed. Thou clothest the naked, dost the hungry feed. Thou makest the feeble strong, the foulest fair, the shuddering coward. In his heart a hare, in his stern brow a lion. In thy power it is from cottage to a courtly bower to raise coarse blood and breeding. By thy charms they are but craft are holpen with such arms, as they outsoar the eagle. Those the schools have labored to make wise, thou makest mere fools, for thine's the wisdom. Ha ha, here my heart aches, and with the laughter shakes it. Here's a part of that quaint sport I laugh at. This poor ass, that bearing dainties, has himself but grass, or coarser bits to feed on. Thus, still croft with labor grind, fear kept, with sorrow lost.
Craft in daubing.
A pure fellow, the main thriving way, in the city, court, or country he can lay this colour well, may live, yet when all's done, 't must be confessed that he's the city's son. A citizen there bred, and there he's free, as the great city's master, who but he, for a plain, upright dealer, from his lip one word profane or idle shall not slip, for a main purchase, but an oath. Why there he meets a monster that he quakes to hear, and well he does to do it, but this pure veil hides the deceit of an uneven seal. Eye obfuscates, plainly cheats the sight. His weights indeed come many times too light. Too light, I mean. Ha! I cannot tell, but I have heard they have one weight to sell, another weight to buy with. Pretty sport, deep measures shallow, and they're long, too short. Besides, false light, under whose shadows lie those faults unthought of that would meet the eye in a more open place. Good archers choose their shafts according to the marks they use. So every tradesman, every flight a shaft to hit his profit. So the handicraft must have craft too, and all best conveyed, where this demure pure seeming's overlaid, that there to pass in. Thus, now in good truth, believe me, Lord, in sadness, in good sooth. Nay, verily it is so, with this they speed. There, verily, a very lie indeed. Dust when all falls, but this handsome cloak hides a bad inside. Many of these had broke long before this time, yet you see their pleasure still to do all in number, weight, and measure.
And going back to Lynn for a rotten post painted.
Why, here's a pageant full of gaudy show, tricks and strange things to laugh at. But bestow your serious eye on this, and you shall swear you ne'er saw folly travel to despair through so bewitching pleasure. Do but note, beside the rich embroidery of her coat, rare both in stuff and fashion, how this thing shines in her Indian pibbles, what a spring of youth and beauty set upon her face. By her bought hair and color, what a grace she has from powder, and she need, I think, for she's but powdered, her rank flesh would stink.
And the next one, and that's Rachel again.
But here's the mirth, ha ha. Observe this ass that's so observant, he'll let nothing pass. Either in cost or duty may he state him in her favor, may incorporate or make him enter as a man made free in the precinct, command or liberty of her most dear affection. It appears, most dear, by the trappings of this loose trader wears. For all which cost, if she but please to smile, change wanton kisses, or pure sheets defile, he's an exceeding gainer. When heaven knows his loss goes double with his money goes his body, wasted from its vigorous hold and able structure, and, but young, is old in feeble ham and aches. Oh, he takes it from her lip nectar. Of her eye he makes a most pellucid star, and in the breath of this strange thing, that's but the door of death, he finds the air he lives by, when this air gives no word fashion, but becomes a snare, in which he lies entangled. Not to jest, his soul is but his own, but in her breast. Thus, while she smiles, but let her change her brow, and wear displeasure on it, he must bow, look pale, and tremble. Bid him go. He then, though heavy, flies. Please her to call again. He's at her elbow. Let her but command whate'er it be. 'Tis tendered to her hand, with many humble duties. Let her name But any man she shall please to blame for some distasteful word, this man so stout, he vows to find the daring villain out, and lay his blood before him, so to prove how much he loves her, and to gain the love that then his life is dearer, though well known. She that loves many does indeed love none. But here's his bondage, in this sin shall fall. He's slave to her, that's slave to all.
And Tumble Down Dick.
Let him that loves himself, let this man go. He'll hardly stand, methinks. Death, what a blow, gave that window. Such another hit will make that vessel holds more mind than wit. Leak, I can tell you. Now, for shame, bear up. This vertigo, taken from the cup, makes a man stagger. Do you note his face? And Ignis Fatuus, that from place to place flies in this wine-dye humour, so they say, leads many a man out of his thrifty way into binocs and dangers. 'Tis their lot, following his leading, to go all to the pot. I need not point you to the wealth he bears. 'Tis most apparent to you when he wears stones of great value, sapphire, ruby, such as ere he came to wear them, cost so much as he'll now hardly number, not in haste. Yet 'tis well known he has been used to cast his part of many reckonings. You may see it. Some he's now casting as he walks the street. Is he not cunning, how he hawks and spits? He goes cross-legged, just as a tailor sits. Yet he holds up, quarrels, and by his hand protests he'll fight as long as he can stand. That may be true. As his blind fury flies, he swears to kill men, but he swears and lies just in the kennel. Ha ha! In this sink of base pollution, this sweet devil drinks, are lost all virtues. Man's a monster made, the privy chamber of his heart betrayed by the tongue's babbling rudeness. Not a part, the least of man, that borrows from the heart. The active power it has, in this has power of any true performance, yet a flower, divinely sweet to some who know no wealth, but when thus poor, ne'er well, but in this health.
And there we will pause to take a little in-breath. So we've got a bit of audience participation, or at least audience picking, or so it seems to me. I did for a moment think that maybe he was working his way through the falls from earlier, but the numbers don't match. So this does seem like he's pointing at people in the audience one at a time. Look at this fellow by his coat. Here's a pure fellow, etc. And using them to riff, because this is the kind of thing where the speeches need something to hang your hat on. And that sort of audience back and forth, I mean, not that you're actually expecting the audience to actually respond per se, but hopefully with terrible amusement at the witticisms being placed around them. This poor ass that bearing dainties has himself but grass. So presumably there's a server wandering around with nibbles. There's a running banquet, perhaps, going on, which gives us perhaps again a potential context for what this performance is for. It feels definitely performative, and it's obviously full of opportunities to pick out that stuff. And of course, you have to learn this all in advance and then pick your subjects from the audience. I mean, that's actually really hard to do. Actually, you've really got to drill this in, and then you've got to pick the right person or the obviously wrong person for the speech for this to really land. Any thoughts from any of your individual speeches or listening to everybody else's? It's quite difficult in this context to quite follow what some of the bits are doing. You sometimes get the obvious stuff, but then there's an extended thought, and I'm not quite sure what it was sometimes. Rachel.
I'm wondering if the bits that you're reading as stage directions or commentary are codes for the actors to follow to find an appropriate person in the audience to attack. So the one that I read, A Rotten Post Painted, is clearly an attack on makeup, on cosmetics. or at least in part. And so finding a rotten post painted, finding an overdressed female audience member is clearly or potentially a cue, right, for the actor.
Yeah, or a shorthand there for the thing that they're going for. Yes. Other thoughts? Blowing away a fly there. Sorry, I apologise. A clue for the viewer at home watching this video had possibly no idea when this is happening, as to when this is happening, because yeah, I'm quite warm. Anyway, Lynn, were you waving? No. Any other thoughts? It's a little opaque, I'm finding it. But the idea's fine. But I don't think we're rolling in the aisles yet. However, we've still got more of these to go, so I'm sure we can pick out some more people from the audience. That will be hilarious. So we'll start once again with Lynn, Rachel, then Alan. Ha 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 ha. And this one is labelled Birds of a Feather. Birds of a feather there.
Here's a fine merchant. Pardon my mistake to enstyle him so. Yet all this man can make, he ventures out, you see. Indeed, the waves swallow his venture, are all fools and knaves. Huge roaring billows that with zoons and blood swell, curl, and foam, till, like the insatiate flood, they sink the hazard that in hope was fair, for the return of a rich golden share, or some such worthy purchase. But the mome puts bravely forth still comes barely home. See in this shop of shifts, deceit, and tricks, how hard they labor, how that fellow pricks a card at pleasure, how that knave that wears his lining outward, because the outside bears but certain satin inches, turns his eye, and cunningly pops in a cogging die upon that puny gamester. How he frets 1,000 curses out, yet still he sits, still plays, still hopes, as all free gamesters use, throwest it to win, and yet still throws to lose. And see, the winner having changed his place, joined with that fellow with a bloody face, so scratched and beaten for his cheating play, is now a loser, and with well-a-day leaves the great school of mischief. Evermore thus got, thus lost, or spent upon a whore, the road of common gamesters. Ha ha, here's two, like two mastiffs, tugging by the ears, about the last stakes snatching. There again, the tables fly about, and 30 men at one poor sharking fellow. Put of all, that fellow tears the cards he played withal, makes my best sport to laugh at. None atones where painted paper and the spotted bones raise a dissension. All their money drawn, see now a little how the poor knaves pawn the petty things they wear. A pretty crop their old host reaps, and to his broker's shop in some long dirty lane, a sad presage commits them, hangs them, a strange hanging age. Ha ha ha.
All is gold that glisters.
If curious change of colours please the eye, we must not let this monsieur change go by, sans great observance. Has a comely shape, dimension fair, yet but a very ape in's fawning imitation. In thy glass, in which at pleasure various shadows pass as men that shall please to make them, now's a smile, straight angry furrows, such as time shall pile upon the brow of age. Or kiss my hand, thy shadow does it, but correct thy band, some pearl or set amiss, or curl thy hair, stroke up thy foretop, or thy look prepare, as some neat gallants use. For sad or light, as slight occasion guides, or let a right turn bullion hackney, or some spittle wench, was ne'er in France, yet perfect in the French, but mend, as 'tis of some Madonnas said, her withered white with a reviving red to maintain custom, or make antique toys, mouth and strange faces, such as girls and boys delight sometimes to play with. All is there, done by thy zany shadow. So 'tis here, by thy court zany. This low couchant mate that follows greatness, and thus shadows state, but with this difference still that shadow shows. Spots, stains, and blemishes, and in the close directs to mend 'em. When this shadow still makes all seem fair, though ne'er so foul and ill, this, that red anger that pursues to blood, would of his lord have still be understood, to be a mark of greatness, and a spirit befitting such high state inherit. If too familiar with such men as serve his worst affections, and his better starve, in their base adverse duties, why he's then clement and gentle, and on low-ranked men as on the lofty spreads glorious ray, in which he does, like the bright eye of day, shine on the shrub and cedar. If he buy pleasure at prices that are large and high, effusely wasting, then this shadow'll fall, the shadow for it. 'Tis a kingly mind. Let women foul him, 'tis a trick of youth, or let the cup transform him. Why, in sooth, it adds unto his blood, maintains his heat, able and active, and to things are great, it apts him all over. To a drooping heart, t'applies all comfort, puts all cares apart, thus every vice is covered, and appears pure as virtue. From this course he bears till one more stiff and haughty takes the place of counsel on him, and the angry face of his moved lord thus follows. Shall he live? Dares to thy greatness a displeasure give? If thou be angry, why, revenge, destroy, 'tis justly fit. If thou desire, enjoy. If thou suspect, believe. If thou pursue, in thought, taxations, 'tis thine own, thy due. Then but command and take it. Thus this fly follows the honey, thus this ant the high and full-eared crop in harvest. Thus, indeed, this wolf his prey, all but to glut and feed upon the things they follow. As the deer by the flute ravished, when it haps to hear the pleasing air go from it, is betrayed, so by the sound from adulation make, is the dear heart of kings. Like bees they bring in the mouth of honey, in the tail a sting. And I could wish that with ardency of heart they were from the court translated to the cart. Ha ha ha.
And fat as a fool.
Fine fellow, I presume, beyond all reverence, and his perfume will not endure the boldness. All that meet this man with courtesies low as to his feet, and sweetest sir, salute him, for he smelt at a large distance, when not seen nor felt. But oh, the suit in which he seems to tread a stately march, as if a troop he led. Yet but one boy to man him, that methinks, like the sun dazzles, while each gazer winks a refulgent lustre. For that thing some call a cloak, he'll like a girdle fling about his waist, maybe about his arm, wears like a scarf. For, sir, to keep him warm, should he lacked close about him, all his cost would then be covered, and the wonder lost, for which in chief he made it. From his suit to his mustacho turn, and see the acute and curious cut he wears. This gallant's hair in curl and pounce swapped him a larger share. Then's lent by some men to live by, you may see, his no mean means must the exchequer be. To such unbounded freeness, Turt ne'er look on the gallant's back, but in the mercer's book. There see his state, his wit, and for his grace, 'tis all in fashion, in his suit and face. Ha ha ha!
And going round again, a fool and his money is soon parted. Muted at present, Lynn.
Such a number at one instant flow, roll in before me, that hardly know how or which first to speak on, 2 of these have travelled lately into Little Ease, a place so called, to which they idly went to try a foolish cause, where, having spent trebly the worth of that their wisdom sought, they are now returned, like birds that have been caught in the fowler's engine, and, to escape the snare, have struggled all their feathers off, so bare, naked, and poorly now, to seek a nest, with lagging wing they fly, but find no rest. Ha ha ha.
And Jack of both sides.
His man's a dweller in the place we named, yet full of ease and plenty, and much famed for a just servant to Astrea. Yet he knows the seat in which he's bound to sit, and what he has to do in it. He's away a strange meander, which he calls delay, full of by-crooks and turnings. Though he know the path dispatch, his followers must not go that easy, even way. He can dispute and prove, he'll make a poor slight paper suit to outlast a suit of durance which affirms. He's proud and haughty, and will stand on terms.
Never a barrel better herring.
Here's in a bird of the same feather too, one that puts off and makes you much ado about a thing of nothing. In a cure, he'll make his patient patiently endure 1,000 racks, where, if his goodness pleased, the suffering man might, to his health, be eased. Which little labour, little cost. But such is now the trick, they'll make their labour much, to make their profit so, raising their gain from poor men's losses. They can buy their pain. And sometimes too, when they can get no more, to learn to cure the rich, they'll kill the poor.
And we'll pause there. We are 12 or more, in fact. There was 12 interjections with the sort of introductory gloss, but more than that, people have been spoken to. So we've a bit of fat shaming there. The author seemed to enjoy that bit rather a lot. Someone who's sort of dangerous person who's going to be dangerous in a sort of law court setting. Never a barrel better herring. Always nice to have that as a turn of phrase. There's various sort of figures here that it feels like you could write a really good essay about each of these, but I'm not sure if you'd necessarily enjoy them in performance. And the other question, because we were talking about, how many people in the audience are going to be, this is about half an hour's plus one person stand up potentially. Is this more that the performer has all of these options to perform, but he doesn't do all of these? Does he pick and choose depending on who's in the audience? It's a lot to learn if you're only going to do, say, half of it. How long would you, even in the original context where all of, these sort of satires as they are might land better because you'd understand the context. How many of these could you sensibly get through before the audience starts throwing the food that's coming round the server at the thing? Can we have something else, please? Can we have the fools back on? They were quite short. There's just so much material, and we've still got another chunkette to go. They get shorter. We've had our longest sustained bit of text between ha-ha-has. There's only so many of these I think you could sensibly do, even in the context of the time. Alan, then Lynn?
I think actually the way we split it, it could actually have been split further because there were 2 or 3 speeches where you got a ha-ha in the middle, which we hadn't actually split on.
No, that's true.
And I think that actually was a change of focus. And it's it is kosher to the original print because I did the original look at the print. And there are some spelling issues in there which are relating to the period. Yeah. Which changed the sense in 1 or 2 cases very marginally.
Absolutely. The glosses only sort of are the big glosses. That doesn't mean that there aren't more changes of focus. But again, it's still the same game being played again and again and again. Lynn?
So, stay with me here. Years ago, I was in a little sketch for a corporate offsite team building kind of bullshit. We do here in the States. For a big Fortune 500 company. So and the skit was written by the person who organized these events. So it was specific to that occasion, and we named various people in the audience, like actual employees, and this guy's plays SimCity on his computer or whatever. And that day I learned that there's absolutely nothing as funny as making fun of specific people who are there, like by name. It was like hold for laugh, 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 hold for laugh. So I wonder if like the person who wrote this knew that specific people were going to be there. Like this is a speech about this exact person, and this is a speech about this exact person, and the audience kind of all knew each other. So when the speaker singles someone out, it's not just a random overdressed, overly made up, no longer young female member of the audience. It was a planned target. So and that is evidently just sort of infinitely hilariously funny. But there's an awful lot of them.
There are, and you'd have to know an awful lot of people. I mean, there's about 27 gloss notes of these, so it's 27 plus people that you're picking out here. That there's a good 30 odd individuals who you'd need to reference. You might need a seating chart arranged beforehand, but there's an interesting idea that it potentially has more the aspect of a roast than a piece of satire. At which point the context, of course, completely goes out of the window. But then it gets printed, and we get this printed introduction to the reader that all of these things are obviously general enough that they're going to be hilarious, or maybe between a performance and printing, he wrote some more. We have encountered playwrights who have done that. So here's the director's cut. Here's some classic gags that didn't make it onto the DVD.
Yeah, and it occurred that same model that you were talking about, Rob, occurred to me, that this is sort of like the speeches that the actor has to choose from, and he didn't necessarily do them all. It's like, oh, there looks like somebody that would be the merchant, and here's looks like somebody who would be the people who went off to find adventure and now have no money left. So no one necessarily ever did them all on one particular occasion, but these were the ones the actor chose from.
Which again gives us potentially some options. Okay, we're going to rattle through now the last ones. There are a lot more of them, but they're all much shorter. So we'll stick with the same system. We'll start with Lynn and then go around. So we start off after a roar. And remember, of course, for the viewers at home, this is all one actor doing this. We're just splitting up artificially to break the flow a little. So this one's New Lords, New Laws.
Here you must bow, be bare, and not a word but like a whisper, for this man's a lord, believe me, he's exceeding fine. 'Tis fine that does it. That's the hook and line cast out to catch. It finally fills his bags, finds up his wife at issue, while poor rags, having lain upon the landlord's rack, cover the tenant. To his needy back and empty belly too, and at the last spewed out, and into some dark prison cast, there till he die to live. Men nowhere look to what their father or his father took, but doubly treble that. Ne'er think of peace, the bosom's solace, all a land o' lease. Purchase and building, house to house they join, almost as great a treason as to coin. For they'd be kings, I think. In one man's hand, one petty man, you have a petty land, in which they rule with such tyrannic sway, and make their subjects such strange taxes pay, 'tis foul to think. Good Lord, thy will be done. Have mercy on us, for these lords have none. Ha ha ha.
The picture of ill luck.
Here's a lean whoreson, one whose tender sight endures not virtue, nor the prosperous light of any just endeavor, undermines his thriving neighbor, and to nothing pines till he subvert or sink him. His delight in good men's sorrow, and their joy his spite. Ha ha ha.
Better lost than found.
This man's a coiner, yet he fears not death. For he ne'er stamps in metal, but in breath. Swears from believe me, and good faith, and troth. To God damn me, without an oath, protests in nothing. Be he ne'er so bare, he's brave in this, that he can bravely swear.
More knave than fool.
Mark this man well. Do you see what locks he wears? A cunning penman, one who durst lay his ears. He'd write the hand that any man should set to the least dash or tittle, and did get much by the bargain. Yet, for all his boast, in one he failed, and so his wager lost.
Whither wilt thou?
This fellow's father we began with first, but more dares he than e'er his father durst, for he'd not waste a penny. This in play will set by the handful, on a match will lay his half-year's spending. Nay, this youth will take a pretty little painted thing, and make right like a lady. When to all beholders her belly's at her chin, and at her shoulders this little waist she wears, he'll man her too, as if she were not one that used to in common places, but a virtuous thing, and lawful purchase. In a tavern sing, swear, curse, curvet, throw pots against the wall, to make some come double up, and pay for all. His father would not. Thus their gifts were placed, one great in the gripe, and the other great in the waist. Ha ha ha.
Worse and worse.
Yet thicker still, detraction with a breath, as deadly wounding as the hand of death upon the fame of goodness.
Plain dealing in a duel.
There's a knave, though now in tatters, will sometimes be brave, taking the show of a substantial man, and swear for half a crown, forswear he can, and his seared soul ne'er feel it.
First come, first serve.
Who can choose but laugh at this? Why, here's a running stews hurries on them. This wight is wont to ride not on four wheels, but one on either side, and that methinks showed better.
Be good in your office.
What a sort of great gowned men make it a pleasing sport to see the lady that was wont to feed widows, poor orphans, and decrepit need, baited with beadles. Yet to some that beg, a better man must come with cap and leg. Then he that whips her out.
A whelp of the same colour.
Here's one can eat nothing can please him, but the poor man's sweat. Makes need a burden like the camel bear, and kneel to take it too. Beneath it wear itself to nothing and for nothing, while he with a harpy talon rakes to pile one bag upon another.
All weed grows apace. Well, an ill weed, rather. An ill weed grows apace.
In this case, allowed in the forum, that men sell the place that should be given to merit, when the tribe of under officers receive a bribe against their reproof, they have this answer taught. 'Tis fit they sell what they themselves have bought, and with this fitness fit us.
Not too fast for falling.
What a stride ambition stalks withal, and what a pride he takes in climbing up the steep ascent of a great glorious title. His intent directed solely thither, though the way be through lives, though stern-eyed danger lay, snares round about him in his devilish haste to have a pluck where he's forbid to rest. He'll still be sealing till Jove's angry frown dare lightning forth and strike this giant down beneath the earth he trod on.
All's mine, the devil's godson.
This is one that stands for many. He makes many none, and fills himself their places, that on which many have lived, and the more thrifty rich. He monopolized, and now it must stand his, only his, be vended through his hand, at what high price he please. So's golden wit can bring him hundreds in, let hundreds sit and beg or starve. He cares not.
Rash all over.
Pray stand clear. The brow of this man threatens, and strikes fear in all that comes near him. Yet to speak the right, though he be hasty, not in haste to fight. His end, you see, before he's seen begun, whips his stiletto out, and pops it in ere any blood suspected. Thus beguiled, a child may be a man a child. Yet this a fight in fashion.
Whiff and away.
Nay, methinks I see a great way off. By how it stinks! A mighty cloud of smoke. Heaven send good luck. I ne'er saw baby of that bigness suck. This I marvel. My old sides are sore with laughing at 'em while this mist is o'er. I'll e'en go sleep a little, for this sight, this train of fools has almost brought on night with their slow pace. But now 'tis gone, I care not. So, at first, at last, come laugh and spare not.
And off he goes to beddy buys. Bye-bye, sleepy, sleepy time. For Democritus, who... There's interesting, they drop the ha-ha-ha. And then it really picks up pace, and it's more like it's sort of, and now you want me to do people from the audience, I'm going to do them quick fire now. It's almost like it sort of does that instead of doing long dissertations. It's just going to do little quips. Here's a thing, and there's sort of it whips along. You know, even with my, stepping in to read this, non-performance text of still these little glosses that sort of throw in things. So yeah, it does feel like as a text, it's aiming to have a sort of momentum that it starts off a bit slow and then it sort of reads the room that maybe the audience is getting a bit bored now and it wants to just pick it up a bit. Not enough, I feel. I still feel that. Would you have performed all of this? Maybe. Who knows? Some of these things land, some of them don't. None of them are leaping out and grabbing me by the collar and go, yeah. But maybe I'm just not getting that. But again, still not quite sure what the context of this is. I mean, the whole fools thing is a thing, of course. So it maybe there's a context of. Everyone turns up to the party knowing that everybody in the party is supposed to be a fool, and that's the party quirk that we're all here for. If you bought into that as part of the event, I don't know. Any thoughts from the room? now that he's gone to sleep, it's like he's gone to sleep, and I'm wondering if the audience is still awake. Lynn,
I don't know. It's just me, but. When we started out making fun of people who were overdressed or wearing too much makeup or gambling, had an unhealthy relationship with cards and dice. I feel like that's one thing. People have vices, people have foibles, people have weaknesses. But, when you get to the New Lords, New Laws, which is a critique of predatory landlords, or this little bit here about monopolies and the human economic suffering caused by that. That's just not funny to me. I think some of this is legitimate social critique, but no, not so much.
Yes, it is also depending on the audience response here. All the that he's doing here. Is the audience supposed to be laughing along with the ha-ha-has? I'm not so sure that they are. They may laugh at some of the stuff he's doing as a sort of this person, but is that how the humour is supposed to be functioning here? I mean, he does punch down a fair number of times as well in different ways. I mean, I say we've already sort of got the fat shaming earlier and things like that. But there's several little bits where I'm sort of I wrote a lengthy next to one bit. The pretty little painted thing sequence where I was sort of going, not sure what that bit's doing there, and it doesn't look good. And yeah, it was alum.
And then the last one, which is the Anti-Tobacco League.
Yeah. Once again, I mean, that's a perennial that we know.
Yeah.
We just the moment it comes in, I suppose they would go for vaping today. So yeah, it's I'm very curious about this, but I'm still not sure what to do with it. It's interesting because we've had similar, not quite as extreme texts as this before. We've done a few of the entertainments for the Lord Mayor and sort of civic entertainments of the smaller scale type, and we've done some university stuff that has a similar bent as this as well, where say it's a very internalized audience, and so it has a sort of specificity to it that we can't necessarily penetrate. Maybe it'll grow on me like a rash. You know, we shall see. Okay, we have one more turn on this particular evening. Assuming it's an evening. It's not the longest of speeches, but it's a relatively chunky one. So I've labelled it. It's a story about pride teaching humility. I don't know who the interlocutor is supposed to be here. But we have what looks to be a stage direction. Again, not actually sure what this bit of text is doing. But anyway, referring to the previous speaker, this old Abderite, gone to sleep, tired with this knot of incurable fools, let us see once more one that comes stalking in upon us, his plume open, and all the various colours of power and state's pleasure about him. So, lots of plumes. Yet not as they, incurable, but by a blessed accident, recovered of his disease, pride now in a pious course, teaching humility. Pride teaching humility.
What more then, foolish folly, is to boast or swell with ostentation of those things that smile of fortune lends, and are lost, as laid upon the swiftest eagle's wings, and so borne from us. Both to poor and kings shall show her giddy turning, changing ever, but in inconstancy she's constant never. Yet these uncertain favors so much wrought on proud Sestorus, an Egyptian king, that he forget he was a man and thought a godlike power, with an eternal spring of various pleasure, state, and everything to which man's love and dearest affections stand, were all his own, and all at his own command. For having won the laurel to his brow, that wreath of conquest from a field of blood, and made kings captive, to give luster now to such heroic fortunes in the bud of but new sprouted blossoms, he thought good in all the ornaments of fate attired, to ride through Memphis, to be seen, admired, not in the Rada or Caruca used, to the bed Roman senators of old, to bear the Roman senators of old, but by his war superbiously infused, he must have his more precious, all of gold, that most refulgent earth, for which are sold the souls of many mortals. Meaner stuff, though rich to poor, such is pride's lofty puff. To this rich matter, burnished and enchased, this proud commander adds the unvalued worth of beryl, topaz, sapphire, jasper. Placed with such rare art, they send a luster forth, would make the night seem day. And in this worth sits like proud Phaeton, or as indeed his feats great splendor should the sun's exceed. To this proud chariot must no palfrey come. To this the reins are gold with golden bits, and kings must here supply the horse's room to draw the champion on this chariot sits, his captive kings. Who then, Their flow pace knits his brow with anger, must too smoothed again, tug hard as horses, nor like kings nor men. Their costly trappings are the costly weeds they wore when they their regal titles wore. The head's attire to these high pampered steeds, so now by office, are the crowns they bore, when subject duty humbly did adore their quondam glories. Such Sesostris pride, like kings attired, like jades to toiling tide. Thus, far as the picture of Sesostris' heart, the change now follows, as the chariot goes, of these four kings. One still aside will start, and turning still o'er the turning wheel he throws most serious glances, which the rider's blows oft times would punish, yet he'd still be slack, and still to the axle tree and wheel turn back. Sesostris, wondering to what end so oft he turns, demands. The captive king replies, in the wheel I see the spoke that is now aloft, turned straight and to the bottom, and that low spake to rise, to the place of that stood highest. To this mine eyes and meditations fixed. The moral's plain, what's high may fall, what's low may rise again. The insulting monarch, hearing this reply, and noting well the reprehensive aim of him that spake it, turns a judging eye down to the foot of folly, where the same pride soared so high, for now he sees is shame, and shames to look on it. Now his plumes depressed to human form, has now a human breast. He now can see they, like himself, are men, and so much being. Had their blood been a base, yet it had been more pure, more precious than for now low duties. How much more disgrace imposed on greatness. Whose birth and place were as his own. This he now can see, for he grieves. For this he sets them free. Takes to his chariot hearses and these kings as men, his fellows, and his dearest friends, to whom in notes concordant now he sings the dulcet part of kindness that transcends a common friendship. Nothing fortune lends by fits her favors. In our Christian phrase, heaven hates the haughty, doth the humble raise.
And that is it. So, as a story of don't use kings for horses, use horses. Good plan. The horses are quite good at pulling chariots. That's people aren't so good. Well, that felt connected with the rest of the text. It's so random. It's all so random. I mean, there's a vague connection between the first sequence with the fools and the second section. And this is sort of, I suppose it's a bit about foolishness in the, but none of it feels cohesive. It feels like just some stuff. And yeah. Strange. Alan.
I'm just wondering if somebody in years to come were to look back at some of the, quote, alternative comics of the late 80s, people like Ben Elton, their stand-up routines, and actually tried to perform those out with the context of society and the news at the time, would have the same sort of reaction of what is this playing trying to do?
I think with actually quite a few plays that's probably right, because we've encountered a lot of plays where we're sort of going, there's a joke here, and I know it's a joke, but I don't know what the joke is. With this, it's so much more opaque than that kind of analogy. It feels more like it's an in-joke than it's it's striving for. I mean, what each of these things are doing, they're clear enough if you dig into them, and you I say, if you sat down and did an essay on each one of them. But in performance, getting that across and sustaining that for an evening is a bit much. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to drift into final thoughts because I feel that that's a sort of where we've got. Weirdly, I see bits of this being something I could do something with. The opening bit with the Fools, I think, would make a perfectly nice little short audio piece. I could record that very easily, do it very happily. I could even record and do something with the Democritus, but I feel that it's more about, again, a series of audio essays about what he's actually trying to say rather than actually a show. Same with the potentially a speech by Pride. It's difficult to tell who that speech is supposed to be by. Is perfectly performable in isolation, I feel. Putting all of these bits together and trying to present this as an evening of entertainment, even with a first half, because it's not that long, it's about 40 minutes probably, maybe, plus, if you did it at pace. But even if you did a first half where you sort of went through and explained what the hell this is, I think it's terse work for masochists to do that. And yeah, or even picking and choosing some of those longer bits by Democritus. There's only so much mileage I can see in doing that. But maybe I'm missing. Though, if you're watching at home and thoughts in the comments, if you've got a pitch, go for it. Don't let us tell you not to do things. We're not here to do that. We will do all of these things in some fashion in the future. I say this is a very easy one to do for the podcast. I could do it. It may actually go surprisingly high up the list because it will require almost next to no resources to produce. But I don't expect it to be a flyer. Beyond that point, I don't imagine I'm going to have queues of people around the block demanding that we go to a stage production of it. It's historically vaguely interesting. But any thoughts from the room about it? Anything anyone wants to add? Lynn, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting as an artifact. Evidence of what people were concerned about in terms of the cracks in the social order and the social problems of monopolies and predatory landlords and the things the culture was criticizing people for, like gambling and dressing above your station. And so I mean it's interesting as a sort of little sort of core sample of what was going on in the society. And the verse is really interesting, although I'm not sure it's good. I'm not sure all that tricky enjambment is actually a virtue. I think it would be worth studying if you're a student of dramatic verse in this period. But in terms of like making it work on stage, I kind of got nothing.
I did find it very opaque, even when I knew what the object of the satire was. I frequently didn't know what was actually being said moment by moment, and that's a problem with a text like this. Rachel, any final thoughts?
Trying to imagine a context for this, and I'm just wondering if this is both somehow bridging the specific and the general I'm wondering if it's an adaptable dinner theater project, right? If it could be, so they've got some pieces they can pull out for specific audiences in the middle section, and then at the end and doing a bit between courses, and then at the end of the banquet, Pride, a reformed but still resplendent Pride comes in and gives a message of enjoying but not too, I don't know. I'm just wondering if this is a dinner theater early on,
Yeah, or maybe there's a wider entertainment that this was part of, and all we've got is the stuff written by Thomas Brewer, which might pull the threads together if there's something else. I think you're right about it feels like dinner, that there is a meal context here. There's certainly that there's food nibbles available. They talk about servers wandering around. So it feels like a private event on that level. I don't know, but I don't know if we've got any more evidence actually for that kind of thing. Alan, Anything else to pitch
I'm
in?
just wondering whether this is actually almost an exercise in somebody looking back a century before to morality plays, and can we do something that is working off the same sort of themes, but bringing it up to date a little bit? And in that case, it could almost be a sort of college high table thing of done almost as an academic exercise of, right, your task was to take a century-old model and try and make it work. And there were one or two quite nice telling ones. I mean, I think one of the first bits I had in when we were doing the alternating reading was the bit about short measure, which was very much an issue of that period of the merchant who's basically ripping off his customers, and is a problem ever since, and probably well before, but making it explicit with the sort of the rise of early modern capitalism.
Yeah, and yeah, you're bang on about the 100 years earlier. That opening sequence with the fools about who has sort of more nobility, the nouveau riche or the poor aristocrat, goes all the way back to John Hayward and Gentleness and Nobility and other texts of that sort of ilk. And yeah, I think there is an element of that in there, a nod to a distant past thing, which has, I suspect, more of an ongoing tradition than we necessarily have in the record. I suspect this kind of thing is a constant. It doesn't, interludes don't die out; they just go underground. That's my feeling. I think the print market it decides they're boring in the 1570s, 80s and then plays from playhouse companies start to really catch fire again, and they're old hat. Well, that's it for now on A Knot of Fools. I imagine no one's clamouring for a second look at this anytime soon, but you never know. Thoughts in the comments if you so desire such things. All that remains to thank our wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Fie, how it stinks.